Yeah, all right, everyone, and welcome to Safe System Assessments. And we are recording every session, and that's because we know how life gets. And sometimes life gets a bit busy and you might miss a session, or you might want to jump back in and have a look at something you wanted to go over again. So we do record every session and we make that available to you after the webinar. So it's usually loaded within a couple of hours. And there is just a little content warning here. We do have some road crash scenes, nothing too controversial, but if it's not something that you'd like to see, we will alert you at the time and you can have a look away. But we use it as part of the learning in the course. So I should probably introduce myself. Hello, I'm Kathy, and I am your program moderator and general go-to person if you can't make a session, if you've got any technical issues. And I'll give you the IT 101 version, which is turn it off and turn it back on again. That usually solves most problems we tend to find. If you've got any admin questions, if you need an extension, I'm your person. And during the session, so this is the webinar version of Zoom, so we can't see all your lovely faces, but it works much the same way in terms of we will engage via the chat, which everybody's jumped in and said good morning on there this morning. With the chat, you can choose to chat to hosts and panelists only, which means that Ken and I will see those, or you can click on the little three dots next to where you put in your little message and choose to chat to everyone. And we do like people to chat to everyone because then people jump on other people's ideas and that sort of thing throughout the program. If you do want to ask something anonymously, you can do so via the Q&A function. So I monitor those in the background while Ken's doing his thing in the foreground. And if you do want to talk, we can hear you by raising your hand, and I'll unmute you and you can make a comment or ask a question. So I think that's probably, and if all that fails, you can always email me or send me a text message. And this is Ken. Hello, Ken. Do you want to introduce your lovely self?
Yes, Ken Beer. I'm the principal engineer at Safe System Solutions, and before that, I was with a road authority for many years. That was the Victorian Government Road Authority, Vic Roads, and yes, been doing safe system assessments for quite a long time now, and nobody cared for them for the first about 7 years, and then people started showing an interest in more recent years, which is awesome. And I'm been trying to get people excited about it and out there doing safe system assessments. So I'm excited to see a good group here. And that's a QR code to my LinkedIn, because I do like to share content on LinkedIn and try to keep us as an industry thinking about the latest and greatest things in road safety and questioning common practices if we think that it can be done better. So yeah, I'd love to link with you on LinkedIn if that's a platform you're on. Otherwise, my contact details are there. If you have any technical questions in the course, not IT technical questions, but content related questions, get in contact with me.
Sounds to me like you're an early adopter, Ken.
In some things, yeah. Definitely safe system and safe system assessments.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you named a whole organisation after it, so that's interesting. So the learning management system is, you've all received an email, may have gone to your junk, but that's okay. And it gives you access to the learning management system, which is where you'll find the recording of each of the webinars, where you'll find the notes of each one as well. There'll be a short quiz to do, like a 10-question multiple choice style quiz at the end of every webinar, just to make sure that you're here with us. And you do need access to this in order to be able to successfully complete the program. There is a couple of small assignments for you to do, and so without access to the learning management system, you won't be able to successfully complete the program. So please do jump on there if you haven't already. And if you have any trouble and you can't find that email from your junk and that sort of thing, please just flick me an email and I'll reset you up again. Wally the Wombat. So Wally appears a few times throughout each session. And again, Ken's always a bit concerned that somebody might be doing a roundabout design or something off the side whilst tuning into the webinar. So you've got to count how many Wallies appear throughout the session, and then it's one of the quiz questions at the end of the module. So, and we do give you a little bit of leeway. So if you did have to step away to the toilet or something like that, you're probably going to be okay. And I might even give you a hint sometimes. I'm too nice. That one is not included. So that's not a Wally for this session.
That's what Wally looks like, though.
That is what Wally looks like. So that's what you're looking for.
Often a lot smaller than that one. So you got to keep an eye out. But yes, Wally's one of the ways we try and keep people engaged and active. We also want people commenting and having conversation in the background and talking about things. What about prizes? Can we give out prizes, Kathy?
We do, Ken. We certainly do. And it's here I am. I'm in the prize pit. I'm just going to grab something here from the background and pull it out, and voila, here you go. You get a lip balm. You might not actually get a lip balm. Maybe that was just...
Is it a used lip balm, Kathy?
Yes.
Has our prize budget decreased?
Just a little bit. No. So what we're looking for is, as Ken said, engagement. So please ask questions, answer questions when they're asked. You can volunteer during case studies, and oh, that's right, we do trivia. So if you arrive early to a session, just because we know sometimes you can jump on a few minutes early so that we're all ready to go on time, we do Kathy's special trivia where it's how used is this lip balm and other such questions. So we do want you to engage. It's although we're not in the same room and all that sort of stuff, we've done our best to get you involved. So yes, Darren's already saying Ken's getting a bit sneaky with the Wallies. Keep your eyes peeled. It's okay, they're not as bad as they used to be. I used to hide them behind things and that sort of stuff. Wally was peeking. But yeah, so arrive early to the sessions, ask questions, answer questions, and get involved in the chat. And
we'll send you those prizes in the post.
Absolutely, old style. Yeah.
At the end of the session with a certificate, assuming you successfully complete the course.
For sure.
But that does take some work to successfully complete the course, doesn't it, Kathy?
It certainly does. So you do actually need to attend. So we ask that you come to a minimum of 4 out of the 5 live webinars because, again, of that interaction side of things. You complete all set tasks. So there's a quiz after every session, and there are 2 assignments. There's your one major assignment where we ask you to go out and do a site visit and write up a report. And that's sort of towards the tail end of the course, and we'll build you up to that. And we also ask that you achieve an 80% pass mark on everything. And this is really, it's quite high, actually. Thought 50% was passed back in my day. But really it's designed so that we know that you have really gotten on board with this and comprehend the process and how it all works, and that we're confident that, you'll be able to step out there and, jump in and do a safe system assessment in real life when you get there. So there is plenty of coaching available to you, and please don't be frightened by that in terms of, oh, well, no, this is, just like uni and I'm going to fail and maybe I'm going to have to do a group assignment or something like that. I hope it's not triggering to that extent, but basically we're here to support you. So if there's something that you're not getting, get in touch with us. We can set up one-on-one sessions, and it's really, it's a test of Ken, I think, is what we're finding here is if you don't get it, it means that Ken and I haven't done our jobs properly. So yes, that's about successful completion.
And I like to do my job properly, so I will have those one-on-one coaching sessions with anybody that's struggling, and we will certainly work through to build your competency up to that 80% level. And really, though, there's nothing, there's no rocket science in this course. It's a fairly logical, simple assessment methodology, and then we utilize your existing knowledge and skills and the like for you to apply that. But yeah, we do require you to do some stuff for this course. So no free rides.
Do stuff. No free rides, absolutely. Okay. I think the other thing I wanted to do was acknowledge that we are presenting this webinar. Well, we're from the Wurundjeri land here in Melbourne, Australia, and we acknowledge that people are coming from all over New Zealand and representing all different parts of the world. So we acknowledge our traditional custodians, past, present, and emerging. And I think we may have covered everything. So opportunity for questions. Now, asking questions, the chat is your friend here, but type them in as we go. So don't wait until we pause to say, do you have any questions? Because then, you know, typing takes a little bit of time and then we might have moved on and that sort of thing. So as a question pops in, just type it into the chat straight away and we will pause along the way, and I'll get those questions to Ken. So it looks like everyone is comfortable, and we will have a short halftime break too. Just a quick coffee and toilet break.
Thanks, Kathy.
I think we're good.
Yeah, well, as Kathy said, just type your questions in as we go, and let's get a bit of conversation happening. I'm gonna start this fairly big picture and talk sort of philosophically about the SAFE system. And some of you probably at the thought of getting told about the SAFE system groan and go, oh, not again, how many times can I hear this? I'll do it slightly differently in the sense of, one, it will be sort of in the context of SAFE system assessment. So setting that platform of the philosophy of the SAFE system under the next step, which is to be able to look at a project or a bit of road or the like and assess how well it aligns with those principles. The second one is I think I've got a way of articulating the SAFE system, which sometimes isn't quite as polished as government officials do it, because I don't need to, you know, toe a particular company line or, you know, governmental line, and I can, you know, point out some of the things that you know, we have some significant sort of challenges ahead in, and anyway, so I'll do that, but I'll also be welcoming input from others on their take on things. I want to skill you up in some areas you probably won't use a lot, and those are people, you know, safe people, safe vehicles. And the reason I say you probably won't use those a lot is most of you are road-related, infrastructure-related people. And when we do assessments, the bulk of the assessing is around the physical infrastructure. However, a safe system assessment is a holistic look at system factors that could influence death and serious injury on the road network. So we do think about vehicles, people, post-crash care, and a few other bits and pieces which I'll cover. So yeah, maybe a little bit of refresher for some of you as well, but well worth it. So let me jump into it, Kathy. Oh, I can see a Wally already. I'm being nice. I'm helping out. There's a Wally. One Wally. Wally count, one. No more help from me for this course. Keep your eyes peeled for Wally. Okay, I'm going to go through principles of the SAFE system. I want to talk about kinetic energy. Kinetic energy, funny thing to talk about when we're talking about roads, but yeah, we'll be talking a lot about kinetic energy, thresholds of different crash type. I'm going to analyze the difference between the traditional way we've approached road safety for many, many years and the way we want to do it under the SAFE system, and we're starting to transition to. We've got some best practice behavioural change, as I talked about, and vehicle safety interventions, and speed. We're going to talk about speed because it's pretty important. We'll get into that. Okay, I know you've all got a copy of Road to Zero on your bedside table, and you read passages from it every night. It is your road safety strategy, 2020 to 2030. One interesting aspect of it, in case you've missed it in your nightly readings, that I think shows that the New Zealand government is absolutely committed to the idea of safe system assessment, is this percentage of road infrastructure projects that have been subject to a road safety audit and or safe system assessment. And well, with Waka Kotahi's recent release, we could say a safe system audit, because that's the new term being used. But what a safe system audit is, if you've heard that term and you're sort of scratching your head going, what's going on, a new thing or what? It is simply a road safety audit and a safe system assessment put into the one document. But anyway, that's a key performance indicator of the New Zealand government. How many of our projects are being subject to this particular safety lens and assessment? Also, how many people have completed an approved safe system training course? So we're ticking off some boxes here. So there's good commitment, good support, yeah, there's going to be plenty of safe system assessing or safe system auditing to be done. But if we take ourselves back 20 odd years and we look at the safe system diagrams, and I've given a little clue there actually, Kathy, in saying that. This is probably the first Southern Hemisphere diagram of the safe system that was adopted formally by Australia and New Zealand. Quickly in the chat, I'll give a prize out for the person who can tell me what year New Zealand formally adopted the safe system at that national level. Have a guess. No points off for getting it wrong. We don't mark you on anything within the actual sessions. It's only after the session, assignments and quizzes and the like. What are we seeing there? Lots of good people are getting in and guessing after that prize. I don't think anybody's quite got it yet. Bouncing around.
So it is bouncing around, and you did say roughly 20 years ago, give or take. So I might.
Oh, good. I like the
I'm
range.
going to give a prize to Anbu Sullivan. Sorry if I've massacred your name there. I like the 1990 to 2000. That's rather than just type in year after year. But it is going to go to Tim Casey, closest without going over, which is 2003. Was it 2004?
Just as you say it.
I think
it was
people have worked out
get
get prizes. Yeah.
I mean, 2003, there was a lot of, drafts and posturing around exactly how to present it. And it finally got sort of signed off in 2004, or in 2004. But so Kathy will work out how many. I think you gave out 3 prizes in that little discussion there, Kathy. So I'll let you note those. It's about 2004. But really, so there was that commitment to, okay, this philosophy is the way we will attack the death and serious injury epidemic we're seeing on our road network. Yeah, 20 years ago. And really, to a degree, I think there was a small handful of people who actually knew what was being signed up to. And most people just at this philosophical level, they're principles that you kind of say, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But let's look at those principles, and then we'll actually talk about that thing of applying them and actually making decisions on the ground, which is what we have to do. The chief executives and the ministers and the politicians, they're all, talking high level general comments, and it all makes sense from that perspective. When you put it and apply it on the ground, it gets a bit more challenging. But this early diagram is actually quite fascinating. Right in the middle of it, don't worry if you can't read it there, it's human tolerance to physical force. What an interesting approach when we think about human tolerance. So we're talking about the biomechanics of the human body. Human tolerance to physical force, when we're talking about the management, design and operation of roads and streets, that's it's something that really hadn't been done before. So human tolerance to physical force. And then they put around that 3 elements: the roads and the roadsides, the vehicles, and the speeds that are being traveled. And that was it. That was the whole thing, right? There wasn't any of that stuff around it. That was the safe system. And this is why in about 2003, there was a lot of back and forth and debate and heated discussions, because that's what a lot of people were pushing forward for, to say, well, that is our system. And there was another group of people who said, but hang on, what about the road user? And we need alert, we need compliant, we need skilled road users. And the other camp was saying, no, humans are hopeless. Like, they are making mistakes all the time. We've got all sorts of people in society and we need them to be able to travel, but we can't, trust that they're not going to make mistakes and do, odd things. Humans fail all the time. We've all made mistakes already today, and we continue to make mistakes, and hopefully we learn from them, and hopefully most of them are minor, but these things happen when you're dealing with humans. And we need to create a system that's impenetrable to that caters for that. It's designed to accept that people will make mistakes. And so there was this big split. And eventually what happened was that square got put around it. Like, says this, okay, well, let's come to a compromise and we'll put this square around it: alert and compliant road use. So to me, that was a fail. I was more in the camp that said, no, it's like, you can't rely on people being alert and compliant. Okay, you can want that, you can hope for that, and you can do things to try to encourage that and provide the best opportunity, but you cannot rely on that as a system element. And yeah, anyway, it got put in there, and it was just probably a decade of get out of jail free clauses. Well, I shouldn't say get out of jail free, because that actually there are legal things, but no, I mean that idea that people could just say, well, they should have been in control of the vehicle. They should have been alert. I mean, they fell asleep. Like, you've got to be in control of the vehicle. Or, they ran through a red light. It was clearly a red light. So they're not alert and compliant. We can't do anything about that. Well, that's all just not true. We can't. So that was not really the safe system. Okay, so then we started to see all of these other diagrams appear. Now, these are better, far better diagrams, and there's lots of them out there. And, you can almost create a collection of safe system diagrams. People really went with the circle. The circle seemed to be a very common way to go about it. Anyway, so New Zealand has relatively recently, come up with their newest diagram. And I like it. I mean, I think there's some really wonderful elements to this, and it's well put together, well thought through. And whoever's doing the particular wording of this, I think, should get a little prize, because short, concise, but says a lot in the wording. Now, I'm not going to spend ages on this diagram, but I'm just going to unpack a few parts of it. So the principles are key here, and the principles sort of sit around the outside of this, and then we've got the levers in there of the different circles. The vision in the middle is a New Zealand where no one is killed or seriously injured in road crashes. Again, particular wording there. It doesn't say a New Zealand where nobody is involved in a road crash, does it? Right? No, it says where nobody is killed or seriously injured in road crashes, because we acknowledge the crashes are still going to happen. As long as humans are in any sort of control in this system, things are going to go wrong. And so we need to just think about how we manage those, so death and serious injury isn't the result. Strengthen all parts of the transport system. Okay, so we're immediately identifying this is not just a roads thing or not just a vehicle thing. It's all parts of the transport system. Design for human vulnerability. That's that human tolerance to physical force. Biomechanics of injury. How much force can we handle as humans before we are killed or seriously injured? And that's a design parameter. There's that for road designers or those involved in it. That is the hugest change that we've had in the last decade, or well, 20 years, but really in the last decade, is that human vulnerability is a design parameter. All right, you think about, your 1 in 100-year flood, you think about your lighting levels, you think about your sight distance requirements. The amount of force that a human can handle, the speed, the mass, so the energy involved in crashes that are going to happen, that is a key design parameter now. We have a shared responsibility to improve road safety. So that is predominantly focused at us. Okay. People sometimes read that and think, oh, well, so, the driver has responsibility. Was actually trying to flip that and say, we can't just blame anybody, like blame the user for their stupidity or things that have happened. It's us. It's us. We're designing the system. We're managing the system. And it doesn't matter if you're a, local government design engineer, or you're a head office policymaker at Watahi, or you are involved in the design and management of this system, and we have to take the responsibility. We're not voiding road users of their responsibility, but we're just understanding and acknowledging that humans are humans. Actions are grounded on evidence and evaluated. What a brilliant statement to put in there. Why is that a brilliant statement? Because in road safety, everybody feels they have expertise, pretty much everybody. I mean, I'm sure any of you who are at a barbecue and say, oh, I work in road safety, well, you'll get told how New Zealand can rectify the road trauma that is happening out there. Or that people will tell you very passionately and very confidently the reasons why people are involved in crashes or there's particular issues out there, right? Why? Because they've been driving, walking, riding the road network for however long, and that absolute classic. And I used to chuckle to myself. I didn't actually do it. Whenever somebody started a sentence with, I've been driving for 40 years, or I drive 50,000 kilometers a year. Any of those ones, I'm just like, okay. So they're trying to establish credibility based on their personal experience in the driving task. That has no statistical relevance in what we are trying to do. Okay, so we need to look at empirical evidence about what causes crashes, what causes the death and serious injury in these crashes, and what interventions actually give us benefit. And there are counterintuitive things in road safety that we need to be aware of. So I don't completely dismiss talking to the public, right? I'm always open to those discussions, but it's more about getting interventions that have evidence through, rather than sort of trying to understand what will work and what will not work from the public. And this becomes pretty problematic when you're a road safety professional. You have a job that is road safety related, and you are somebody who has personal experience, and you just need to temper your personal experience and ensure that you've looked at the evidence and you looked at comprehensive studies on these things. Speed is an absolute classic, where you have people who don't believe that speed or speed limits or the like have an influence in death and serious injury because of their personal experience that they've sped all their life, or they have driven on roads at a high speed for all their life, and they've survived and they've never had an incident. Okay, so they absolutely, every time they do that, they're reinforced with that this is safe, this is something that can be done, and it's just all those idiots out there that are causing the trouble. And why are we changing speed limits or altering things? I mean, it's not looking at it in the correct context. I will expand on that more, because how we communicate individual risk versus collective risk is pretty important. And that's kind of what I was delving into there, and also the evidence base and how people have formed their opinions. Okay, this one, again, just New Zealanders doing awesome New Zealand stuff. Our road safety actions support health, well-being, and livable practices or livable places. So New Zealand has identified that road safety on its own, is something that some of the community is very passionate about. It's often people who have been touched by road trauma in one way or another, either their family members or themselves have had incidents, and then they can get pretty passionate about it. But getting wholesale change is very hard because of that individual's perspective on things. But health, well-being, and livable places, let's ride that coattail. And the interlinking between road safety and these things is just, they're so intertwined, especially in urban areas. Like that, if we create healthy and livable places, and we create well-being for the community, it's going to align with safe system principles. It has to. Like, they just connect so beautifully together. So I don't like looking at road safety in isolation when I'm up at that level of big picture sort of policy stuff. It is part of just running a good society. We make safety a critical decision-making priority. Beautiful. There's so many competing demands out there. Getting people from A to B quickly, environmental impact, and these sort of things, as I talked about. I mean, they're all intertwined. You set safety within that as a critical decision-making priority. Usually most of them all fall out beautifully alongside it. I'll talk more about that as well. We promote good choices, but plan for mistakes. There it is. Okay. That is designing for failure or operating for failure. Okay. So in rail, anybody who's worked in rail, I mean, the term fail safe is just run of the mill. Everybody talks about fail safe. Okay. That's what you do. When things fail, they fail to a safe mode. Okay. For some reason, the operation of the road network, nobody ever talks fail safe. Like, we try to make no fail, and we've got to change that. We've got to continue to work to try to minimize failures, but we have to fail safe. So example of fail safe, I should, for those who don't sort of use that term a lot or haven't really worked in that, take boom gates, for example. All right, you've got a level crossing, right? When there is a system fault in there, so the electrics, something goes wrong, what do the boom gates do? They go down. They just sit down until somebody gets out there, fixes the damn thing, right? And make sure it works, because they're not going to take that chance that, people will be, aware enough and make the correct choices, because death and serious injury on the rail network is absolutely unacceptable. And yeah, it'll cost people some time and it'll annoy people. But what's the alternative? Death and serious injury? We're not going to accept that. On the road network, there's a whole lot of parallels where we go, we don't want to annoy people. We don't want to, slow them down a couple of extra seconds in their travel. So death and serious injury, it's just part of running a transport network or running a road network. We're challenging that. And let me talk briefly about other industries, and then I'll give people a little exercise to do. Okay, let's talk widget production. So in factories, manufacturing, some sort of widgety like thing that they're making. Okay, and there was a time back in the day where it was a very open system. Like they had people that they, grab off the street, say, give you some cash to work in here. Kids cleaning the machines, all sorts of, very open system style ways of doing things. They did certainly, tell people how to do it, point out dangerous parts of it. Sometimes they often, essentially licensed them to do different tasks, but it was inherently dangerous area. And people were patted on the back and said, no, you have to look after yourself here. You have to, keep yourself safe. And that's what we sort of refer to as a pathological safety culture, where you have an inherently dangerous area and you push all of the responsibility for safety to the individual and their particular practices. So you elevate up from that and then you get into this reactive safety culture. And that's where you solve these, trauma incidents as they come along. So when that kid loses their arm because they're cleaning there and it gets caught in the machine and then it's ripped off and you go, oh, geez, okay, we should do something about it. Okay, we'll put a little guard on that. And then the next kid, gets their arm ripped off just a bit further up. Let's put a bit of guard there. Okay, well, we'll put a guard on this whole machine. And then, you've still got 50 other machines exactly the same, but you've that one just happened to rip some arms off. And then somebody's backed over by a truck in a certain area. We go, oh, okay, so that's the reactive way to go about things. Then the economists get involved and they go into a calculating mode and they say, well, hang on, you have a fair bit of downtime when these arms get stuck in the machine, and you have to pay out a bit of money to these kids' families, and then when other workers are killed and you've got to pay out, and it's actually costing you as a widget producer quite a bit of money and lost production and time and payout. So, you actually proactively invest some money in guards on these few machines, you will get a good return there in terms of more widget production. And so that's what we call a calculating safety culture, where you really trying to find that appropriate balance in what you can afford to do versus how much death and serious injury you're willing to accept. Then we elevate to a proactive safety culture. And this is where safe system in a culture perspective sits. And it says that, no, we need an incredibly high level of safety, and we will push widget production up to that, right? If we can't operate in that safety envelope that we are setting, we stop widget production until we can get into that. And then you need to heavily invest in maintaining that, not just maintaining the safety equipment you've got, but maintaining that culture. When we look at the road network and the way we design, operate, manage the road network, it's kind of interesting to see where we're at. There's a lot of pathologicalness to it. I mean, we license people, we pat them on the back, we say it's super dangerous out there. You have to be responsible for your safety, and you have to make the right choices, and you have to always be alert and compliant and all of that. It's rife with pathological safety. We've done reactive safety for a long time. Okay. Yes, there's a high-speed crossroad intersection. There's a death at it. Maybe a few deaths at it. We go, we change it. We say, there we go. We've solved the safety issue. Yeah, there are 7,000 of those across New Zealand. Okay. We're getting calculating. Back on that crossroad. I mean, it just happened that one presented the death and serious injury. The risk is at all of them. within very close range in terms of, how much risk they've got. Calculating, then, there is calculating done. A BCR in road safety is just always there. And New Zealand, at very high levels are questioning some of that, which is great in terms of the way it's done and calculated. How do you get a benefit cost ratio on road safety, and is that appropriate thing to do? But still, it does happen a lot. And that basically says, how much do we value a New Zealander's life, and how much is it going to cost us to prevent them being killed? And is that a worthwhile investment? Okay, that's pretty grotesque. I'll give you a more vivid example of that in a minute. Proactive. There are elements of proactivity, and we're seeing it more and more, and it's great to see. And they are, small pockets of safe system in action, and we're enjoying seeing that. We're seeing, new motorways rolled out with absolutely continuous safety barriers all the way through. Okay, it's not waiting to see where the people run off the road and then putting some barrier there, or just saying, gee, maybe people won't run off the road on this one because, it's saying, no, they're going to run off the road. It's there. It's part of the requirements of the investment. It's like building a high-rise building. You don't build a high-rise building and have balconies and say, well, let's just see where people fall off the balconies, and then we'll put railings there. And, okay, maybe we'll put railings on the curves because they're more likely to fall off there because it's on a curve, right? No, it's an absolute non-negotiable that those safety features go in from the very start. Yet there's been a practice forever of building roads without these railings, where the chance of death is just as high. And we somehow believe that the humans will be the one to intervene and never let that happen. So, there are proactive. I mean, one of the earliest proactive things that were done was school speed zones. And I know that it's really exciting that there's more work and New Zealand's going to a 30-kilometre school speed zone, and that's great. But even the 40-kilometre/hour school speed zone was a glimpse into proactivity. And let me just quickly tell you that, and it'll be the same for the 30-kilometre/hour school speed zones, by the way. But let's talk about the 40, because that was 15, 20 years ago. That, if you look at from a calculating perspective as an economist, so economists don't have emotion. It's a big statement. Don't repeat that to any economists. But okay, let's take emotion out of it and do pure economics. The calculation on school speed zones is a horrible investment. And why is that? Well, there just aren't enough kids killed and seriously injured. And if you take the very, very small increase in travel time for every car and truck that goes through these school speed zones, and you add all of those up over every day, all right, and you equate that to a big pool of time, and then you times that by a dollar figure, which is the average earning of the average productivity dollar figure for a New Zealander, which is something like $88 an hour, and return to the economy, and you say, well, this has a cost, right, to the economy of X amount, and well, we value a kid's life at 3.8 million or whatever it is, and we expect we'll save this many. That's not enough. It's a bad investment. It's grotesque, right? We just don't accept that. We say, no, who kids we're talking about? We're not going to, a couple of seconds here and there. No. And yes, so you can see we're okay with pushing back on that. But when it comes to other areas of road safety, we don't have that proactive safety culture in there. So, Kathy, before I jump into a quiz, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, so comment about, I think BCR is still useful for assessing options for investment rather than just whether or not to invest.
Yeah, so give that person a prize because they've identified one of the things that I have to do in a 2-hour module is polarize things in order for people to stick with a message here. Okay, and so then they're not wrong. So if you look at benefit cost ratio, okay, in theory, it's a perfectly adequate thing to use to prioritize investment, to choose, do we build a hospital versus do we upgrade that road? Do we build a new rugby stadium or do we update the sewer line? Like, how do you make those choices as a society? You need to bring it back to some sort of way to compare quantitatively choices on investment in a society, right? And benefit cost ratio is as good as any. But where we fail in a benefit cost ratio exercise like this, I mean, is, well, there's a number of failures. The biggest failure in it is the way we don't quantify other values associated with the feeling of safety and the like. The second is, you know, a gross undervalue of human life. If you just jacked up human life to a few $1 billion each, okay, that changes. Even if you use other metrics like a willingness to pay, which is like, okay, how much are you willing to pay not to be killed in road trauma? Okay, and that's literally like saying to people, right, well, how much can you get? Like, you mortgage your house, you remortgage your house, you sell all your assets, you borrow your money from everywhere you possibly can because that's your choice, death or give us everything, right? Now, some people will just, they find their limit. They go, well, I'm not going to do that to my family and my kids. I'm not going to leave them with crippling debt. So I'll take it at X amount. And, you know, that jacks up willingness to pay methods of calculating jacks up the cost significantly compared to societal based costs. But nonetheless, that's a way an economist would do it. But the whole point of it is if you can use it as a prioritization tool only and not a do we or don't we operate a road network in a specific way, it can be okay. But the better way to do it is to set safety as a non-negotiable and then use $1 invested per lives saved as your metric for prioritization. And there's little nuances, but I won't go on because I know Kathy's already going, Ken, you've got 3 hours of content left in the next 20 minutes.
Yes, correct. But no, good. I'm loving the thoughts and the conversation happening, and you've inspired a flurry more of comments.
Oh, and sorry, just on that school speed zone one, I said I wouldn't talk any more about it, but I did the BCR calculation on that for Victoria at one point in my life, and you know, really bad BCR, right? But we were going to do it, and then in subsequent speed zone changes, we couldn't get it across the line because of BCR and economic assessments. So this is going from 100 to 80 on roads. And I simply put then, I said, well, okay, if we're going to do this as a state, let's do it properly. And we've got to increase all school speed zones, right? And I said, here's the BCR on it. It's a magnificent investment, right? Okay, it's going to kill 10 kids a year, but hey, like, it's an awesome investment because, and this is under what you're telling us we can't lower this speed limit for is exactly the same as why we have to raise these. All right, so let's get out there and kill some kids for the economy. And, you know, can stop being
no, I just
being dramatic, and this is what they, you know, and you know, that's not managing a road. It's crap. Like anyway.
I love it. All right. Okay. Yeah, look, I'm surprised you last in government as long as you did, Ken.
I'm surprised. If there's an economist in this group, they are just going to be bashing the keyboard, explaining externalities, not taking into account externalities in your economic analysis. But let's go. Anyway, give me questions, Kathy, quick.
All right. Okay. So yes, a couple of seconds for each driver may have other co-benefits too, like encouraging those to use other modes, people walking, biking, public transport, by making driving a touch more unattractive.
Yeah. Spin-off externalities of economic analysis. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, pros and cons either way.
BCR are of limited value in comparing. The analytical tools do not have the ability to adequately assess the nuances of different options. You're dealing with small changes in very big numbers.
Aggregating small numbers. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Another great comment. Lots of very knowledgeable people in this group.
Yeah, because you've got them fired up, Ken. Hearing that official human life in New Zealand is going to be changed to around 13 million.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, no, all good. But we're still, safe and appropriate speeds are a good example of trying to be proactive, but we're still running into issues with implementation that pushes it down to calculating public perception, political pressures, etc.
Yeah.
And we need to include other societal benefits and climate change benefits and so on in BCR.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, we better keep moving on.
All right, I'm going to launch a quick quiz, launch a poll. So this should be a little pop-up on your screen. I should say poll, and it's just really just to check in here. As Ken mentioned earlier, you're not being marked on these ones, but which of the following is not a key principle of the safe system? So which one of these is not a key principle of the safe system? And then the second question is, at what speed did Usain Bolt cross the finish line in his world record 100-meter sprint? And we haven't covered Usain Bolt's 100-meter sprint just yet. So we're interested to see where this one goes, Ken.
And the principles, we slightly varied the wording of it from exactly how we talked about the principles in the New Zealand one, just to make sure people understand the principles. They're not just regurgitating the words we said, just understand what are the fundamentals of that principle. And yeah, Usain Bolt, did we put the wrong question in? Was that from our athletics training course? No.
Yeah. That's what
we'll use that. And some of the people I've already used that analogy with in this group, so they'll be going on. I know where Ken's going.
Yeah. I was going to say, Ken, just as we give people a few more seconds to jump in and complete that poll, keep it open for a bit longer. You're very passionate about the school speed zones, and it's always fun to talk to you about school crossing supervisors and the BCR for that one as well, because when Ken's had maybe a beverage or two, just mention school crossing supervisors.
We are not recognising the other societal benefits in the economic assessment of schools crossing supervisors. But I did, and again, government wouldn't let me. I mean, added to my list of things government wouldn't let me do. I solved school crossing supervisors. We just needed to open them up to sponsorship. So McDonald's would fall over themselves to have a big Macca's logo on the back of a school crossing supervisor, right? They would, it is pick any organization, because they have so much societal goodwill, right? But they cost a bomb of money for very little particular road safety gain. And I mean, certainly with infrastructure, you can just absolutely, a raised school crossing compared to a supervisor, it just pulls apart in terms of safety. The raised crossing just does every time, except for the raised crossing doesn't help, the mum and dad feel that their kid's not going to get kidnapped or other things like that, and the warm fuzzy feeling you get when you say hello to Mr. Crossing Supervisor every morning and these sort of things. So it's a fascinating one, but just put them out for sponsorship. The corporates will just fall over themselves to pay for the crossing supervisors. Or take the New Zealand approach where you just get kids to do it. That's pretty awesome. I like that one too. Anyway.
So easy to get you fired up, Ken. So easy. All right. Okay. I've entered that poll and I'm sharing the results. And it looks like everybody is on board with which is following is not a key principle. Majority of people have gone for aim for no mistakes on the road because we just can't stop making mistakes. And Usain Bolt crossed the finish line at, most people have gone for 44 kilometers an hour.
Well, most people are on to this, and probably because I use it a lot, and then some others are using it now as an analogy, which is great. But like the aim for no mistakes, I mean, in some utopian world, that would be lovely. Like, you know, oh, yeah, let's go for no mistakes on the road. But reality is that it's going to happen. So what we talk about is minimize and manage mistakes. So we're still going to work to try to stop people crashing and be better walkers and drivers and riders and all of that stuff, right? But we just got to manage it when it doesn't work. So minimize and manage. So well done, everybody. A little trickery in the knot and which, so maybe, so yeah, 44 kilometers an hour. That's about what Usain Bolt was running speed as he crossed the finish line. Why do we ask this? Well, it's the analogy of parking a car at the end of his lane and then he runs into that at 44 kilometers an hour. Does he survive? Well, the answer is that, yeah, he's going to survive because he's like built like a fridge. And he's made to withstand a fair bit of force. Any of us mere mortals flung at a car at 44 kilometers an hour, getting into dicey territory as to whether we survive. Pick our parents or grandparents up, fling them, they're not going to survive. And so it's quite an interesting one. But we have this data for a lot of society, and this was sort of European macro research done, and there's a lot of work going on across Australia and New Zealand, and in fact around the world on trying to recreate this and get more clarity on it and add more severity of injury elements in it. But for now, generally we sort of accept this at Austroads levels, at national levels, and so we're going to run with it. But what it shows here is we've got down the bottom here, we've got collision speed, all right? This is speed of impact, right? This is not speed limit or anything like that. This is just speed of impact. And over here, we've got chance of death at that speed. This one is passenger vehicle striking pedestrian. Now, pedestrian could be older pedestrian, younger pedestrian, Usain Bolt pedestrian, it's got a big spectrum. But what we see is 10, 20, 30 kilometers per hour. Is at about 30 is where it goes really bad, really quick. I mean, exponentially kicks up there. Usain Bolt's in up there, but Hulk of a human. And we see anomalies down each end. We see people being struck in very low speed, knocked over, hit their head, die. We see, 60, 70 kilometer crashes where people miraculously survive. Yeah, but the bulk of people are killed in those scenarios. This is what we're designed for. He's fine. I mean, he breaks some ribs, but he came back and won the gold medal the next year. It's about recovering to lead a normal, healthy life. That's what we're designed for. We're designed to withstand those forces. As we get speeds above this and energies above this, we can't handle it. We have this for other crash types. So this is bullet vehicle. So that one's the bullet vehicle. The bullet vehicle does the damage in crashes. That's the target vehicle. Target vehicle, occupant getting killed. So driver or struck passenger side. And we see at about 50 kilometers per hour is where it exponentially goes bad at a right angle crash, okay? And for head-on crashes, we see at about 70 kilometers per hour. So same mass, same speed, direct head-on crash or slightly offset, we see about 70 kilometers per hour. That's the speed of each vehicle. So like, I suppose their closing speed would be 140 kilometers per hour. However, the forces are a 70 kilometer per hour crash, because you think about an individual driver, they go from 70 to 0, okay? Equivalent of running into a brick wall at 70 kilometers per hour. And there's a really good Mythbusters episode that does that in true Mythbusters fashion, of crashing cars into each other and then crashing them into brick walls and with accelerometers and proving that point. One of the things we also do in this course is put these little links to safe system snippets. So that's just something that we've taken a little topic like this and just expanded a little bit on it, and sometimes with videos and things. And so in the PDF notes, which you can get out of Learning Management System, you can just click on those and have a little bit more of a look if you're interested. So they'll pop up throughout the course. Now, in a safe system assessment, and Kathy, I'll check in with you in a second. In a safe system assessment, we need to actually start quantifying the chance of death and the chance of serious injury associated with different crash types. And we put scores to those. We actually quantify them. Scores of a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And so we've created this chart, which I created this actually originally for the Australian Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is Road Safety Audit Update. And then we took it and we translated it into safe system assessment stuff. But nonetheless, what it is a whole lot of different crash types and speeds. And then you can generally get an idea of how bad it's going to be. Now, it is very much a spectrum of color there, and you're going to need some professional judgment on it, but it'll help you in your scoring. So flag this one, because when you come to actually trying to score things in a safe system assessment, it's going to be very, very helpful. And it gives you more crash types and different users and all that. Kathy.
Just yeah, thank you, Ken. And that one should be a hard copy in your pack as well. We've popped that one in there because it will be something that's useful to you. Earlier when you had the graph with the pedestrian and 90-degree angle and head-on collision, does this probability take into account the age of person hit by vehicle?
So that is all of society. So, you know, it's collected everybody. I mean, the reality is that it was probably, you know, like this.
Yeah. And
they had to put some curves to it. And, you know, this one would have been an 18-year-old, and this one would have been an 18-year-old, and this one would have been a 12-year-old, and this one would have been an 80-year-old. Well, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay, this diagram, and I think we'll take a break very shortly. This diagram is something that pops up in road safety a lot, okay? And it's a diagram of somebody's done a mass crash causation study. This one was Kimbler, 2003, but there's a dozen of these, and they're like massive worldwide or huge crash causation studies, root cause analysis, massive amounts of in-depth analysis of crashes, usually sort of behavioral psychologists doing a lot of this research. And what they come out with pretty much every time, and have for the last 50 years, is that driver or road user, it just happened Kimbler was just doing drivers, but or you could say road user error is somewhere around 90% of crash causation. The road, a small amount, some of that overlaps, vehicles are even smaller amount. And why is this diagram the bane of my existence? And well, first of all, not because it's untrue. And in fact, the research is very impressive. These are amazing academics doing this research. It's, very, very sound research. Bane of my existence because of the way that people use it and what it is saying to people, like in a logical sense. People say, well, if you know what 90% of the problem is, fix that 90%, right? That's where you're going to get your best return. And so it pushes people to try to change humans. Now, we know that there is just limited ability to change humans, okay? We know we can continue to do better and get better, and we're working on that, right? But what we need to think about this is a system failure. The system failed, and we need to have intervened in some way in here to stop it being death or serious injury. Okay, changing the human is probably one of the hardest things we've got to do. Changing the infrastructure so that that crash either couldn't have happened in the first place, or when it did, the energies were lower, right? That's changing the system. And even though, yes, the driver will continue to make that mistake, it's not going to result in death or serious injury. So that's how we need to reshape our thinking. Almost every crash you see out there on the road network, you can blame a driver or a road user for. I mean, it's so easy to do. But we get nowhere by doing that, right? Where do we get? We get to be saying, oh, people should be better. Well, that's ridiculous. Okay. Yeah, we want people to be better, but we need to actually fundamentally alter our system. Now, Austroads put driver excess and driver inexperience outside of this. I'd put them inside of it. They're just system failures in their own right. I'll talk about it. On this one, I just wanted to say that, I mean, error in the transport system is also an interesting, really fascinating topic. If you talk to a lot of the public, they think death and serious injury on the road network all sits below that line with these deliberate violators, those high-speed drivers, the boy racers, or people hopped up on ice driving stupid speeds and wrong way down the motorway and those sort of things. Right. The reality is that the bulk of our road trauma actually sits above this line: unintentional violations, mistakes, lapses, and slips, which are pretty much normal people going about their general business and making human-style mistakes and errors, and that resulting in death or serious injury. It's a challenging thing to address deliberate violators. They make up about 30% of our death and serious injury in New Zealand. A little more than 30%. I mean, I fundamentally feel that there's a bigger picture thing that we're going to need to look at in how to address some of this. And it's like, we did an Austroads study, and I mean, the end result, well, if you want to read a couple hundred pages, but I'll summarize it, is people drive the way they live, right? So you actually it's a bigger picture issue going on there societally, and there's a whole lot of interesting factors. But nonetheless, I think about above the line here and all of the things we can do in design, management, operation of the system, and we'll get benefit below the line as well, but then there's going to be some that we need to fundamentally think about differently. Hey, Kathy, let's have a break, but let's get people to do some work during the break. That's a bit of a nasty thing to do.
Yes, that's what it's like working for Ken, everybody. Have a break. Have a break, Kathy. No, take it easy. No, just finish this proposal for me. Anyway, yes, we'll give you extra time. But basically, a poll has just popped up on your screen again, and it's the mix and match exercise that's on that slide as well. So if we're going, the traditional approach was victim blaming. Where does that sit? And some of them, again, don't stress out too much. Some of them can be different bits and pieces. But 5 minutes, Ken? 4 minutes? Yeah,
let's have 5 minutes. I mean, as Cassie said there, some of these, so it's just to try to reinforce a bit of that thinking. What's the traditional victim blaming? Well, where are we pushing towards under a safe system? And, some of them could go to multiple ones. So just pop a thought in and we'll go from there. Let's have 5 minutes. Paul, let's go. Okay. So we've got lots of good answers in there. I might remove that actually. I'll just do it on the screen. I think it's going to be easier. So let's stop sharing that, get that out of here. As I say, don't get too worried about it. I was just trying to reinforce learnings here. Victim blaming, well, we're recognizing human error, trying to minimize the consequence of that. We're going to create that forgiving system is what we're going to put more effort into. Not saying we're going to ignore education and compliance, but more of that. Some of that crash reduction is more around, enhanced focus on consequence. A lot of talk about the severity and the outcomes of crashes. We're thinking now about a multifaceted system and interacting elements optimized jointly as an interaction. What a mouthful that is. But instead of those sort of isolated silos or pillars of the safe system, and that balance between mobility and safety, well, we're saying no. Safety sets the preconditions for mobility. Nice quote from Ian Cameron, who's a Western Australian. He made the quote on the UN stage, actually, which was, we need a paradigm shift in road safety policy to stop the road death epidemic, and we need it now. It's unrealistic to expect education and enforcement alone will bring the needed step change. Even road users who know and follow the rules make mistakes. A safe system creates an environment in which simple mistakes will no longer kill people or seriously injure people. Okay, little quick exercise here, and we won't spend long on it. Here's a road. You don't know much about this road, but there was a project to get that centre wire rope safety barrier system in. And that project faced a lot of challenges in the planning, design, development, getting the funding of it, stakeholder consultation and the like. Lots and lots of challenges, right? You can see it eventually got in. There's some more of it. Pop into the chat your things that you think cause trouble in the design development of getting this central barrier system in. Okay, just pop it into the chat. I'll give out some prizes as they come in. Get your prize spreadsheet ready, Kathy. Anything you might think that there was a challenge for that development design team. All right. Well, I got a few in mind, but I'm going to give out prizes as I see other things as well. Oh, this is a good group. It's like this group's tried to do this. They know the issues. All right. Oversized vehicles, absolutely. This was a route actually between two areas, and they needed to tow houseboats, and that was a challenge. So prize there. So the width of the corridor, the road corridor, the road area. Yep, that was another one. A prize out for that too. Yes, lots of those coming in now as well. So emergency services concerned about access? Yes. Okay. What if the roadside's on fire? How do we get there? What if somebody is traveling the other way at 150 kilometers an hour? How do we chase them? Absolutely. Yep. So prize for Tim there. That's another good one. Yeah. Ducks on turnaround areas. Prize there. That was a big challenge. People getting out of their properties. We don't want to have breaks every 50 meters on these. Well, you can't because of minimum lengths of barrier systems and all of that. So how do you get people out and get them turned around appropriately? Yep, absolutely. So that's another one. I could give it. I'd empty the prize bit here, Kathy, because so many good answers coming in. And nice to see people putting them out to everybody as well. I'm not going to be able to have time to get through all of these. Dale's one. It's such a good encompassing of the thing. Loss of freedom to drive where you like. Let's give a prize out there because it does change the way people use the road network. Okay, And in fact, if we want to change our system to eliminate or close to eliminate death and serious injury, it's not going to be operated the way it's been operating for the last 50 years. It's got to change, okay? So people are going to have to change the way they use it and I suppose some of the freedoms that they have had. There's some really specific things around drainage and the like, and bank cuttings and battered slopes and those sort of things, which is really good. I'll hold myself back, Kathy, from giving out all of your lip balms, and we'll just give those prizes out. But there's just an absolute deluge of reasons why you can't do these projects if if you're in the development of them, or you feel you can't do them. I mean, we didn't even talk about motorcycle groups. We had wildlife people saying, "Oh, the kangaroos won't be able to get across." The kangaroos, they jump over anything. But these were concerns, and you will face these. People want to be able to overtake, and they go, "Oh, I'm going to be stuck behind somebody going 80 along here, and how do I overtake it?" Okay, the point being that change doesn't come easy, but this one happened to get hit, and of course it was going to get hit. Actually, another big one which we were trying to face was the maintenance crews. Our own maintenance people were saying, well, no, we can't maintain it, and we can't maintain the road next to it because we can't contraflow vehicles and put them into the other lane to work around us, and these sorts of issues. Anyway, it got hit. Of course it did. Of course it got hit. That's why it was in there. But in amongst this, somebody called up the regional office, talked to the engineer who was sort of responsible for it, and that engineer sort of picks up the phone thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get shouted at here," because that's part of life as a regional road authority engineer, is you're going to get shouted at by somebody about something. But they just wanted to call up and thank them for putting in this system. They've driven the road for a long time. And this was the first time it was there, and then a car just came directly at them, and then the barrier wasn't there. They feel that it would have head-on crashed and killed them. And this is an interesting example, and there is a wonderful little video that they made with that person, and that's in the learning management system. It's only a 2-minute video, but it really shows that people are going to make these mistakes. This person felt like they're not a bad person. They made a mistake, and the system intervened. The barrier did not care why, did not care anything about who these people were, what was happening. It simply just does the job. It meant the mistake was managed. And that's what, that's where the infrastructure will play this amazing role in our safe system. So I'm just going to run through a few of these elements. So these are the circles here, the vehicles and the like. I'm going to run through a few of these just to give you some insights. We will come back in module 5 to use a little bit of this information, but it's important for you to know as a holistic road safety professional as well. These are real sort of key points around some stuff that you could talk for many weeks, many years about, but I'm just going to jump in. And we do have actually some references to the research behind a lot of the stuff I'm going to say in a very short amount of time. Like, how do we get more improvement out of drivers, riders, walkers, and the like in terms of road safety? Because it's going to be something we continue to do. We are absolutely in the space of recognizing the limitations of this now. Right? This is not the be all and end all. This is not going to solve our road safety issues, but it's something we continue to do. The things we know work are some education, encouragement, enforcement, and some sort of entry into the system. And I've put graduated licensing there. Let me talk through these briefly. Education. I mean, educating these little humans, that's where you get your best bang for your buck. Not just in road safety. I'm pretty sure you all understand that in general. They are very good to educate. They also in road safety can feed back a little bit to their parents. They can be little Trojan horses for safety messages. Instill in them that everybody in a vehicle must be wearing a seatbelt. They'll tell people to wear their seatbelts. Good little tricks like that. Young drivers, high risk, and then we see them highly overrepresented. And very briefly, I mean, young drivers, the best things we can do is give them the hours on the road network, public road network. Any advanced driver training where they learn high-speed skids and how to get out of those and high-speed braking, that makes them more likely to be killed or seriously injured. More likely, okay? They come out of that with a new set of skills, and that small reduction in risk in these particular scenarios is absolutely swamped by their increased risk-taking and confidence and the like. That's one of the world's most, I reckon, comprehensively studied and proven things, yet we still see people saying, oh no, if everybody could drive like Michael Schumacher, we would have safety on the road network. Well, it's just absolutely false, right? Give them the hours on the road network, get them the safest vehicle you can possibly afford as a family, and give them the time out there. Interesting thing about humans is, well, humans are fascinating, aren't we? One of the things in road safety messaging is that we are dealing with a collective problem, and we're talking to individuals. And this is a really great campaign by the Transport Accident Commission. It says, if you talk to this driver, right, and sorry, this is basically saying you text and drive, your kid's going to text and drive. Okay. If you talk to that driver and say, if you text and drive, you'll be killed, or there's more chance you'll be involved in a crash. That driver says, nah, not me. Like, I only do it when it's safe. I've been doing it for the last 10 years. Not had a crash. This is just, no, it's not true. You have to bring things back to tangible things. And the reality is, and this is completely between us, don't be sharing this with the public. The risk of that driver being involved in a death or serious injury while texting and driving is absolutely minuscule. Just tiny, okay? But that's not what we're about. We're about the addition of all those tiny risks to a societal issue, which is huge, of texting and driving, right? But what we're saying is, oh, this is a very risky activity. And they're going, no, it's not. I do it all the time, right? So what we are talking to an individual like they are a collective. We do this with speed limits a lot, right? Oh, safe. It's a safe speed limit. Like, what the hell? It was 100. I drove it for 40 years. It's a safe speed limit, right? And they're not wrong. Like, for them, your individual risk is minuscule, 180, but the collective. So target other things. There's a study out of Tasmania that says people are far more accepting of lower speed limits for protection of wildlife than protection of themselves or other humans. The other humans bits is a bit weird, but protection of themselves, I can completely understand. Like, they just go, no, I'm in control of the vehicle. I'm a good driver. Why would that? Anyway, so we just need to think about how we target something. A whole school approach, getting road safety education in there, combining with other partner activities like the police's activities, supporting the members of our community that are really passionate about investing their time and their money in road safety activities is great. What our role is to really steering them at evidence-based programs and things we know work. It really makes me so sad to see communities putting in their time and their hard-earned money into activities like taking all of the year 12s to the morgue to show them what could happen to them if they drive poorly. There is so much worldwide evidence to show that that does nothing for road safety and changing their behaviour. It traumatizes some of the kids and how they have potential for other issues. It's just like, I mean, in the surface, you think, well, that's got to be good. But the evidence says it's not. Same with advanced driver training. Like, Defensive driver training in New Zealand is a little bit different. It's more understanding risks and those sort of things, and so there's definitely potential for that to actually be okay. I can't say I have personally read the research and evidence around that. I know that the programs of defensive driving are different to the ones that are evaluated in this advanced driver training category. So, but I can't, hand on heart say I've read that research and I know that that's actually a good thing. Graduated licensing is good. So we know people are higher risk as they enter the system, and you put more restrictions on them and then you ease those restrictions off over time. Target parents, they're the most motivated, and they will put in place systems for their kids to drive safer and be safer. And action program, I'll talk about that. And what doesn't work? Fear tactics. So yeah, you like the morgue one, or even scaring people, TV ads to try to absolutely scare people into changing their behavior. There is a place for those, but it's not about changing people's driving or riding or walking behavior, right? It's just simply setting a platform for you to legislate. Okay, if you want to put in new restrictions, new laws, new enforcement techniques, yeah, a bit of scaring the hell out of the public kind of helps, okay? But don't think it's going to change people's behavior. Skill-based driver training we talked about doesn't work. It actually makes things worse. One-off events don't work. Driver simulators, well, there's nothing yet. And continue to bring out driving simulators. Nobody's actually got any independent empirical evidence to show a driver simulator improves road safety. Okay, you can get funded by the driving simulator manufacturer evidence. I don't quite trust that. Anyway, yeah, go-karting clubs, car racing, it's all about similar to the skills-based stuff. Information only, again, can help you with platform for legislation or infrastructure investment or the like, but don't think it's going to change people's behaviour. Don't think putting a sign up to say 10 people killed on this road in the last 5 years will change the way people drive or ride that road. It just won't work. Here's an interesting little graph. It shows death and serious injury in learner phase with a supervising driver. Then in probationary phase, in early probationary phase, the next probationary phase, and then it sort of flattens out into fully licensed. This is used to talk about graduated licensing, putting more restrictions on these in these areas, which is all fine. The other thing that I think is fascinating about it, and you can do it by vehicle kilometres travelled. This is actually just number of deaths and serious injuries. I'm just trying to think whether other injuries were included in this. Doesn't matter. You could do it by VKTs, which is a more accurate representation of like for like. Anyway, the point being, people down here have no skills, have no experience, yet they're safer than people here. Right? So to come forward with an argument to say if everybody was a highly skilled driver, we would be fine. Well, the data just says that's wrong. There's far more to it. Encouraging is an interesting area. I personally think an untapped area in road safety. We've done a few things in there. Incentivizing people to drive safely can be actually very effective, and it can be incentivizing in a variety of ways. I mean, you can just pay people to drive safely. You always fail that through some sort of mechanism of a free license if you don't have any demerit points over X number of years and these sorts of things. But that works. Speed Lotto, I think, is probably one of the best incentivizing campaigns I've ever seen around the world. So that's basically the idea, or Swedes have done it and a few other countries have done little samples of it. But essentially, you have a speed camera, it takes a photo of every passing vehicle, and any vehicle going over the speed limit is fined, and any vehicle going under the speed limit goes into the draw to win all of the money of the speeders. And it's just nice. I just like it for the, it shows it's not revenue raising. It's about getting people's compliance, piggybacks on human gambling addiction, I suppose. But anyway, it's a good example, but I think there's lots of opportunity there. We've got to advertise its specific behaviours, not just general road safety messaging. It's got to be specific. You have to tell people what to do. Take a break every 2 hours of driving, right? Not just drive safe. It kills. Like, okay, well, you've got to give them what to do. When you're trying to do behavioural change initiatives and campaigns and the like, it's very hard to understand what is effective and not in terms of actual behavioural change. Basically, anybody evaluating messaging goes on recall, all right? And recall is, do they remember the message? What do they remember of it? The like, and you've got to hope for the link to road safety change. Recall and comedy under our biggest target audience, being young males, they're beautifully hand in hand. Now, I'm sort of talking to some of the people in the best country in the world on comedy in advertising in road safety. There's just world-leading stuff out in New Zealand over the years. It resonates. Does it change action? It's very hard to tell. Anyway, we're going to see a lot more messaging around, mistakes. So this is actually a New Zealand ad that South Australian government stole. You might remember this ad, but it's not saying to this guy, hey, slow down, because you're going to make mistakes. So it pushes that to other people, which is a far more tangible thing. Initiatives to talk to the public about human tolerance to physical force are interesting. Graham, the only human to survive on the roads, life-size sculpture. Really interesting initiative to try to get people questioning why would you need to look like Graham to survive the forces on the road. Enforcement, it's not the driver and the big change in road safety. It's a supporting element. And we need to strategically think about how we do that. There's two elements: specific deterrence and general deterrence. I won't go into the details of them, but one is basically, I have been fined for that, I won't do it again. The other is I could be fined for that and I won't. Visual presence is highly effective. And we're getting really great technologies popping and emerging out now. Well, they've been around for a while. Point-to-point speed cameras, highly effective over big areas in speed compliance. And that's, I think mobile point-to-point is going to be a bit of a game changer in a lot of our rural network, where we'll be able to put a camera at one end of a road, a camera at the other, and getting average speeds and the like. But the technology's been there for ages to be able to, check speeds, monitor within speed zones. That's 15 years ago in my work vehicle. It was telling me what speed zone I was in, how fast I was going. It would beep at me if I was going over the speed limit. I got back to the office. I was able to get a centralized report of every time I went over a speed limit. Yeah, easily done, easily monitored. We could enforce that way, no worries. There's no political will to do that. But really good opportunity. I'll talk about vehicles, Kathy, and then I'll take questions before I just finish off with a couple of things, give you time to do that. But vehicles are, really advancing in safety features, and we've seen ANCAP or different star rating systems come to fruition to show us that there is an interest in safety from the purchaser, but also giving some metrics to push vehicles into integrating more safety features in. So we see, quite a few of these. Quick prize though, Kathy, for anybody who can tell me what speed the side impact pole test happens at to get 5 stars. So the dummy has to not be experience forces that give it, well, essentially an acquired brain injury that they're going to hold for life. For the bulk of the population, there's certain head injury criteria that has to meet. What speed do they do that test at? If you pass
impact speed?
Impact speed, yeah.
Impact speed. All right, lots of guesses coming in.
They push the vehicle at the pole.
Mm-hmm.
What was?
Okay. It's all over the shop, Ken. Everything from all the way up to 100 down to 32.
Well, whoever said 32 knows the answer.
Yes, Chris got it, 32. 32, is that what you're telling us? 32.
32 kilometres an hour is the current one. It went up from 29 to 32 a couple of years ago. I mean, that just shows you the limitation of handling forces in a side impact crash into a pole or a tree. I mean, we have a heap of the road network, 100 kilometres an hour, trees, power poles, everything like that. And vehicles will leave the road, they will yaw, being sliding side to side as they try to recover, or they wake up, or whatever it is. And it is so far from what the vehicle is designed to manage that death and serious injury is almost a certainty. It's only miracles we see occasionally where they, it splits the vehicle in half, or it directly hits the specific spot where no people is, and somehow but there's so much. The reason I ask that is just to show the limitations. People think the vehicles are going to solve everything, and not at the moment. We're seeing better things. Pedestrian protection now, bonnets pop up, airbags come out of bonnets, because that's now one of the star rating tests. You've got to show how you're protecting vulnerable road users in your vehicle to get your star rating. But when will the vehicle solve us? Put us all out of a job because us road safety professionals aren't needed anymore? Yeah, but it's not going to be in my lifetime. I mean, we know that there's vehicles putting around like this without steering wheels, little foreshore autonomous vehicles they're level 4 vehicles, aren't they? So there's 5 levels of autonomy. Level 4 doesn't have steering wheels or anything like that, but it's geofenced, or particular areas is only where it can go. Level 5 is, can go anywhere, the same as a driver can, and doesn't need a driver. But it's such a distance away, and there's so much death and serious injury to come if we just sit on our hands and wait for this. And there's so many complications associated with its integration. I mean, that's weeks of discussion in its own right. Fascinating, but we're going to keep moving on. But in the interim, what we'll see is vehicles getting better and better at taking control when needed. And we know that some vehicles are giving the illusion now that the driver is driving, but they will just take over when needed. And there you go. You saw the Merc there. The driver did nothing, and the Mercedes slammed on the brakes, and that's actually quite successful. Well, yeah, the leg fell off, but it braked, it slowed down, and then struck. So we're seeing less severity of that incident, and we'll see a lot of that where we're getting the vehicles have intervened, crashes still happen. It's bringing it closer to tolerable levels. But we're going to have to invest in infrastructure. We're going to have to continue pushing vehicles. There's a big lag in vehicle technology and fleets, and New Zealand's actually performs pretty poorly in this sense. You've got an old fleet, and there's not a huge amount of push to challenge that. Yes, there's social equity issues and things like that, but there's something interesting there. I'll keep moving on. Speed. Oh, actually, no, Kathy, I think there were some questions back there, or some comments that I might need to address.
Well done, Ken. Yes, so safe road users should also include financial support to those who cannot afford to pay for the training and sitting the exams. This is back when you were talking about graduated licensing programs and so on. Yep,
no, I agree with that, and ensuring that they have ability to access the hours on the public road network to gain just basic understanding and mapping of risk in getting those basic skills. It's not about being Schumacher style drivers. Yep.
And there's just another comment is about importing crappy unsafe cars, and I think you've covered off some of the vehicle safety side of things.
Yeah. Yep, agree with that. All right, let me give you some reminders of Speed 101. Travel speed, and we're going to put an object at 45 meters, or have a pedestrian step out from behind a vehicle or something, 45 meters. Traveling at 60 kilometers per hour at 45, that will just touch. Go up 10 kilometers an hour to 70 kilometers an hour. You hit that at 46 kilometers an hour. It is not linear, right? If it was linear, it would be hit at 10 kilometers per hour. Okay, so we've got the reaction time, we've got the braking distance, okay, and it's an exponential, it's actually a power relationship when you add in there the actual outcome for the occupants of crashes. And this is based on research out of the Centre for Automotive Safety Research, Cloden research. It's far and away some of the world's best in terms of speed and impact coming out of death and serious injury. So for fatal crashes, we see a fourth power relationship between change in speed, operating speed, and chance of death. Fourth power relationship. It's a third power relationship when you look at serious injuries. It's actually a second power relationship if you look at it for all injuries. So, like, to boil that down, small changes in speed have big impacts on the most severe incidents in reducing them. So if you can bring speeds down. Speed is just amazingly influential because it reduces the chance of a crash happening. But when crashes happen, it reduces the severity. And you'll notice that in a lot of these graphs we've been showing, there's exponential kick-ups. And if you can bring speeds down a small amount, I mean, you're getting massive changes in the outcomes. But speed and speed limits in particular are just highly controversial. Here's some general sort of community sentiments around speed limits. You know, lowering the current speed limit would reduce the crashes on the road. That's the statement. Oh, about half the community disagree with that. I mean, it's just a mountain of worldwide evidence to show it absolutely will. In fact, I was rewriting the Austra's Guide to Road Safety Part 3, which is speed and speed limits, which is now just called speed. And I just started putting in examples. I got like pages of before and after studies with control sites that just show if you reduce the speed limit on a road, it reduces death and serious injury. If you increase the speed limit on a road, it increases death or serious injury. It's like for every 500 of those studies, you find one that goes the other way for some random reason. And it, you know, some people just latch onto that one out of 500 and then try to use that to say that this is, you know, not true. I mean, anyway. Interestingly, if you talk to the community about lowering the current speed limit would reduce the severity of injury when a crash occurs, most people are onto that, which is interesting. I sort of, yeah, maybe the people, yeah. This diagram, again, I put this into the Austra's Guide because I think it sums it up quite nicely. Doesn't matter what vehicle you're in, what your road environment is, or sort of what your road user is doing, you filter it through an appropriate speed, you know, have a safe transport system. Now, that's oversimplifying things, but it just shows you speed is just absolutely fundamental and critical. And it goes multiple ways, because if you have incredibly safe vehicles, if you have absolutely fantastically designed roads, and you have, people wearing helmets and seatbelts and great restraints and all of this, you can go very high speeds. And in fact, a racetrack is a great example of this. And we see very little death or serious injury on racetracks, at very high speeds. And they're very sort of well-aligned, safe system. Yeah, yes, there is the occasional incident and the like, but comparatively, very safe. So speed limits, that red circle around that black number just can be quite controversial, and you're in the thick of it. I know a lot of you are, but achieving safe speeds we can do through infrastructure and/or speed limits. So designing roads for lower speeds, you don't necessarily need to speed limit them. Speed limiting is very important, but we can certainly get very low operating speeds regardless of speed limit, and that can be more palatable to the community. Some stories around that, but I don't have time to really get into them. Explaining why a speed limit is in place can assist in compliance and acceptance, and protection of vulnerable road users generally well accepted. Obviously, kids being one of the most vulnerable, and people don't generally argue about lowering speeds around schools. They grumble a little bit here and there, but it's pretty well accepted. Variable speed limits, I think, is a really important thing. It'll make a good changing by time of risk and varying, and the technology is really advanced in that sense. But let's get into this. And this is just setting the platform for next session. Then I'm going to hand to Kathy to take you into the learning management system to show you what to do. Risk has always been likelihood times consequence. What is the chance bad thing is going to happen? And then what's the magnitude of badness? Or, how bad are we talking about? What's the scale of this? So that's financial risk, environmental risk. What's the risk of recession? Well, what's the chance we go into recession? And then how deep a recession are we going to go into? That's the risk of recession. And you multiply the two. In a safe system assessment and in the management of the road, what we talk about now is extraction of exposure out of likelihood in traditional risk. So exposure is how many, and I'll put a little number symbol, how many people are exposed to this potential crash. Then what is the chance of that based on the physical infrastructure and surrounding environment and those sorts of things? And then how bad is it going to be when it does happen? And this is what we are analysing in a safe system assessment. How many people? What's the chance? How bad is it going to be? And when you think about that, we have ability to influence exposure by stopping people getting to areas of risk. Here's a big mound of dirt stopping people getting to a level crossing. That is eliminating exposure to crashes at that level crossing. It's got a very close sign. Okay, maybe they have to cross somewhere else or whatever, but that is an example of alteration of exposure. Also, moving vulnerable road users away from that conflict of passenger vehicles, so separated paths, separated facilities. That's changing the exposure. The likelihood are a whole lot of things we've done for many years, all right? Like this picture, wide center line, likelihood, delineation, likelihood, RRPMs, likelihood, edge line, likelihood, sealed shoulders, likelihood, guidepost, likelihood, lighting, likelihood. But those are all things reducing the likelihood of crash. Skid resistance, likelihood. Right? They're not doing anything for the severity of crashes when they occur. Traffic signals, likelihood, right? people are less likely to crash because they're getting controlled and told when to go and when to stop, right? But the severity has limited things that we have to play with. The speed, the angle, if we're willing to sort of, the protective equipment being used by road users. If you wanted to start restricting people on their physical vulnerability and use of the road network or different parts of the road network, that would also count. Pretty politically unacceptable, and I think rightly so. We shouldn't be saying, well, no, sorry, you're too frail to use our road network. Slowing vehicles at a conflict point, changing the angles, or taking energy and dissipating it over time rather than an instantaneous stop into a tree or a culvert with a barrier system, running energy out over time. Energy over time is a good thing. That's where we're going to pick it up next time. I'm not going to do that quiz, Kathy, because I want to give you some time, but that's where we're going to pick it up next time. And I'm going to go into a lot of detail talking about exposure, likelihood, and severity. And at the end of next session, I'll get people doing a little activity on that. All right, Kathy, you've only got a couple of minutes. Sorry.
That's okay, Ken, I'm used to it. Okay, so here we are in the learning management system. You're in Safe System Assessment, New Zealand, November 2022. If you haven't already, there's a couple of pre-course things in there. So there's a safe system video, which is great. And Waka Katahi have put together some excellent Vision Zero learning materials as well. So you can jump on there and do that. That's another 10-minute thing. Reference documents and resources. So in the resources section, this is where we've piled a whole bunch of good nighttime reading for you. And so there's a whole heap of resources in there. Some of the things that Ken touched on in this session was the what doesn't work for young road users and why. And there's some fact sheets in there, some nice, easy, digestible fact sheets, and they were put together by the TAC here in Victoria some time ago. So that's just that there for you. I just wanted to alert you to that. Now, module 1 is where we're at today. We've also popped in there a Mythbusters episode, not the whole episode, just a couple of minutes worth, and talks about crash forces or something or another, and Ken is happy for you to watch Mythbusters during work time. Module 1 quiz is there, so that's what you need to jump in and do at the end of this session, and that's where your number of Wally appearances will be, and I'll pop the recording in just under here in a couple of hours time. So again, if you haven't jumped into the learning management system, flick me an email and let me know. And otherwise, do hop in there, do your quiz. There's no due date on the quiz, but you do need to get it done before the end of the course. And you did give away so many prizes, Ken, and you also talked about people having a copy of this by their bedside table. So I've just gone full circle with today's session. So if you haven't got a copy of this, we'll send you a copy of this as one of your prizes. No, I'm only kidding. We won't do that. Can I get a thumbs up or any questions or comments? It's bang on time, lunchtime, got to go, thumbs up. We will see you on Friday.
Log in a little early for a chance to win a prize.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Quiz.
Trivia.
Trivia.
Bye.
Bye.